Hello and welcome back to Ross Taylor Woodworks. This time we have kind of an unusual project. I had a customer that I used to do work for years ago bring this project in back in September, and he said work on it whenever you can, and now I've got some time to work on it. So let me introduce you to my friend here. Okay, what we have here is an antique riding horse tricycle, or horse tricycle. I'm not exactly sure of the proper term. Kind of generically termed as a velocipede.
These are from the late 19th century, first appearing around the 1860s. They were the precursor to the modern tricycle. They had different ways of being propelled. Some had a hand crank in the horse's head, with a chain driving the rear axle. Some were pedal propelled, much like a modern tricycle. The one featured in this video has levers propelling the rear wheels.
Brought it to me. All of the parts were off of it, so I've got everything kind of temporarily mocked up the way it's supposed to be. And I'm going to be making the wheels for this.
Here's a picture of a horse that I used as a model to make the wheels for this horse. It also has the same unusual configuration of two front wheels. This is a good example of what the wheels might have looked like.
I went ahead and made up a prototype wheel. Before doing this, I had no idea how to make wagon wheels. So YouTube really helped me out here. There's a few jigs that I had to make to be able to do this.
First, let's look at the anatomy of a wheel. In the middle we have a hub. Then we have the spokes radiating outward. The outer rim pieces are called felloes. Then we have a steel tire on the outer rim.
Okay, one of the first things to figure out was how many spokes the wheel had. They all have an even numbered spoke, either 8 or 10 spoke, and was able to figure out just by reverse engineering how many spokes the wheel had. This is the arm that's off of the tricycle, and this little clamp clamped onto the spokes. It has two little indentations to clamp onto the spokes. So just by doing that, I can tell, just measure that angle. And I took a bevel gauge, measured the angle, and then took a protractor, and it came out to 36 degrees. So 360 divided by 36 is 10. So that gives me the 10 spokes. And then did a full scale layout of the front and rear wheels, and came up with a 16-inch rear wheel, and this middle wheel is the front wheel, which is 10 inches. So I just drew two circles, 16 inches, 10 inches, and then got the spokes just by squaring off the edge of the board here. Okay, started with one line and just took my protractor and went around in a circle, marking the angles for each spoke, so 36 degrees apart. So get all our spokes evenly spaced 36 degrees apart. And then just kind of guessed at the width of the felloes, and that was 1 inch. Came up with 1 inch on that. And the hub, I came up with around 3 inches, so I drew a 3-inch circle here to represent the hub. Okay, and then made up a 1/2-inch wide strip just to represent the spokes, and then marked the width of the spokes. Okay, also drew a cross section of the wheel, and here's the hub. I could easily measure the width of the hub here, which is 2 7/8. And figured out the back spacing here. That was basically how far this arm can reach in. So I was able to figure out this back spacing here. And then once again, tried just guessing at the width of the tire. I just came up with 1 1/8 inches. So based on all this layout, I did my prototype wheel. It's again a 3-inch hub, 1/2-inch spokes, just using off-the-shelf 1/2-inch dowels, and the fellows 1 inch thick by 1 1/8 inches. So it all looks really good. I spin it, it's nice and balanced. One important thing to note is this is strictly a replica wheel, strictly going to be for display. For the hub, I'm using found some nice dense hemlock in my lumber bin. It was 1 3/4 thick, so I was able to just glue up 2 pieces to make a 3-inch block. After turning it around, the first step is to measure the length and square up the ends. Okay, now I'm going to measure in 1 inch and mark a scribe line for the spokes. Now I'm going to turn a profile on each end of the hub. Just come in 1/4 inch and turn down to 2 1/2 inches, and then just do a slight round over. The next thing is to grind down the stub flush with the end of the hub here. Okay, now on one end of the hub I've still got my center point, and on the other end I've lost my center point. Now I'm going to take a centering guide and remark the center. Just turn it around a few times and so you can accurately locate the center point. Now just to poke that with an awl, and I've relocated my center. Okay, now we're going to drill a 1/2 inch hole down the middle, coming halfway on one end and coming halfway on the other end. Yeah, first jig to make is a clock. I'm calling it a clock. And just mark from my center point, marked. Use the layout here to mark the spokes. Now what we're going to do is attach this to the hub. Okay, I drilled a 1/2-inch hole in the middle. Going to use a dowel to locate it. And we screw this right onto the end of the hub. Okay, now this fits into another jig. Which has a 1/2-inch hole and a half moon shaped hole here. And it's got a perfectly square center line all the way through it. And an indexing mark right here. So what we do is take the hub, fit it into this jig, and put a dowel all the way through. Okay, and we go to the drill press. We're going to use the clock to line up with the indicating mark here for each spoke and drill the spokes. I've got this set up in the drill press, and the most critical thing here is the point of the drill has to be dead center over this mark. So I've lined that up and have a fence to hold the jig in place. Now we're going to clamp, just use a vice grip to clamp this in place. Now it's locked onto one of the indexing marks. Okay, and we follow our scribe line, and I'm drilling 3/4 of an inch deep. Now we just turn the clock to the next mark, clamp it again, okay, we just keep rotating this around, moving the clock around to the index mark. And I'll just keep doing that until I get all the holes drilled.